All right, family, give me 1 second. Get together. And get this shit together. Y'all was trying to go live for a minute, and everything that could go wrong did go wrong. So that shit just aggravated the fuck out of me. I ain't gonna lie through this one. My shit really moving super slow now. It's crazy work. Crazy work. Crazy work. All right, real quick. We'll start it out with a quick little song. Let me go. Mhm. So I do have that. About to share screen real quick. And then we gonna get into it. So let me share screen first. The speed, man, speed is crazy. It's like it won't recognize that I'm not on the Wi-Fi. That shit is getting on my nerves right now. I can't find on. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Let me just check my little sound on this end. Make sure everything good. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Everything good that way. Uh, we can go ahead and get this ready to go. All right. All right. So what's happening with y'all today? I'm quite sure. Hopefully y'all was able to y'all got a chance to see the title. Hopefully you got a chance to check out the last show that we did, right? Um, we did do one that was recent. Okay, perfect. I just want to. All right. Okay. My fault, y'all. Well, let's go ahead. Let me get my screen prepared. Google Slides. Share. And let's get into it. All right. Right. So as y'all can see, and I'm probably going. Let's see. I may try to get through um both slides just today. Right. But so today we kind of getting into geometry diffraction or the geometry of diffraction, right? And so this kind of deals with the geometrical shapes that exist outside of space time, right? And so in 1982, a discovery that shattered 2 centuries of crystallographic dogma and forced science to rewrite the dictionary. All right. So we got to just start out just from the beginning, correct? You first have to ask yourself, do you even believe your eyes? Right? That's the first question I have to ask. Do you believe your eyes? And the reason why I ask that because we're gonna kind of go really deep into um, how it is that we see, how it is that we view the world. Um, we're kind of going to get into the theory on what they call interface theory, right? And so, with that being said, though, let me go ahead and get into it, right? And so, just like a desktop, right? Or just as like a desktop icon, right? We could say like a blue folder. It isn't the actual file, right? Electricity or silicon in a computer. Our perception of a red apple is just an icon designed to hide the complexity of reality, right? And that's just so we can survive. So we talk about the math of evolution, right? And it kind of goes into it, it kind of like almost sets the stage that almost like, and I'll say it's what other people might call it as well as like evolutionary game theory, right? But some refer to it as the math of evolution, and basically it proves that seeing truth leads to extinction, that we've been shaped, right, to see 0% of the actual reality behind the screen, constructed, shaped, programmed, right? That just kind of depends on what type of words that you want to use. Um, and that kind of goes into what you believe is on the other side, right? And so, just like a VR headset, right? You are wearing basically a space time headset. So it's like when you look away, the apples cease to exist, at least in that form. It's just data being rendered by your interface. So it's kind of go. I'm not sure who was there when I said uh, we don't see the same moon. We assume we do, right? We assume that we're looking at the same moon. We assume we're looking at the same star, the same tree, but we're assuming that based off of our own perception, and it really doesn't get exposed until we both have to explain what we're looking at, what we're seeing, how we came to the understanding based off of the looking at the exact same object, item, whatever it may be, right? So I don't wanna. So you have mathematical proofs, right, that are established. These are like repeating structures that could only support two, three, four, and a sixfold, right? We kind of got into that yesterday, right? But so what it kind of gets into, and this is why I say that space time is probably on the brink of being destroyed at this moment, because we talk about for decades we thought that space and time were fundamental stages of the universe. But high energy physicists like Nima Arkani now state that space time is doomed, right? State that space time is doomed. The black hole limit. So, on a Planck scale, right? The very act of trying to of observing something smaller creates a black hole, right? So the furthest that we can observe something, or to the smallest, is that when we're able to collapse a wave function to the 10th of the 33rd power, right? That's it. My 10th to minus the 33rd power. Once you go beyond that, 10 to the 33rd, you create a black hole. And not only that, but once you create this black hole, it basically, the object that you're trying to study or trying to um, observe, it just disappears, right? Making at that moment space time meaningless. So this kind of comes down to, if space time isn't fundamental, then what is it, right? Or what is fundamental? So it's almost kind of like looking at the software that exists outside of the headset. So we get this discovery of this monolithic geometric structure that exists outside of space time, and it's not the only. Let me see here. And so, with like traditional physics, the calculations of space time, they could be like thousands of pages long. And so what happens is that they try to find different, and the point of, as you go up in math, is to try to shrink down the math down to where you're not using as, it doesn't take as many formulas, right? You're trying to shrink down the process. And so like when you usually go into those pages on physics, especially we talking about space time, they ended up being thousands of pages long. And so when you start to use these higher dimensional geometries, the same calculations take a few less lines, right? So you find out you actually, with the geometry or the sacred geometry, it makes it a little bit easier to do the math, which helps with storage, right? When we're storing all of this information, of course, um, even if anything, if you're taking down notes, you want to get to that, to your notes as quick as possible. So you might highlight some of the key things. It'll bring you to the same answer, though. That'd be the point of it, right? It's to bring you back to that same answer. And so the simplicity of the universe is found outside of our 3D perspective. So it's like our world is like this messy projection of a clean, higher dimensional logic, right? So we get into perfect pentagons hidden in the diffraction. The data reveal intense, sharp bragg peaks, right? The undeniable signature of a long range order. Yet the peaks were arranged in perfect icosahedral five-fold symmetry, right? This is the linear scale between the pentagons perfectly matched the golden ratio, right? I just kind of want to get y'all back a little bit. And so, remember, we assumed at one point in time, right, that when we talk about crystals, that it was already assumed that the pattern had to basically remain the same periodically, right? It would have to have a pattern that keeps the same periodically. This is what makes the quasi crystal so unique to that. And so, as we kind of get into it, we basically, they talk about it, 2 years of skepticism and verification, right? Oh, my fault. Sorry, I got a little emergency. All right. My fault. 1 second. Hold on 1 second. All right. All right. So as we'll kind of do want to kind of continue in it really quick. I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me send this message. Hold on. 1 second, family. Hold on 1 second. I gotta run downstairs. So while I do that, do me a favor. Let's get this going, and then I'll be right back with y'all. Hold on. All right, all right, all right, all right, all right, all right, all right. Hopefully, y'all can see we back in the mix. Let's go. So, if we are truly living inside of a mathematical simulation or a VR headset, right, we should be able to expect to find certain glitches, correct? Things that are physically impossible according to the rules of the three-dimensional space, yet exist right in front of our eyes. For over 2 centuries, right, the fundamental laws of crystallography stated that crystals must be periodic, right? And meaning that they are made in identical units that repeat perfectly in a 3D space. So, because of that requirement or for repetition, certain rotational symmetries were strictly disallowed or forbidden. Just couldn't do it. Specifically, fivefold symmetry, right? Like the shape of a pentagon was mathematically proven to be incompatible with well, we will say translational periodicity. And so you simply cannot, like, and that's where we got into like how you couldn't just like tile the floor, a flat surface basically using fivefold symmetry crystals, right? But of course, as you had Dan Shechtman, and this happened because he was basically looking through at an electron through a microscope, right? And he was looking at how it like rapidly solidified alloy and saw the impossible, a diffraction pattern with tenfold, right? You know what I'm seeing the shadow of it. So with tenfold symmetry, he famously remarked in his notebook, tenfold, because he knew he was looking at something that violated the established laws of physics. His discovery of the quasi crystal, right? It's gonna always kind of end up being a theme. So, of course, this is something that's controversial, right? That he spent years convincing the skeptical scientific community. So we gotta understand, like when we talking about it, how does nature even break down, right? Or how does it break the rules of the third dimension? So we gotta look at arguments like, especially we get into like the n-dimensional solution, right? Which mathematically we discovered that these 3D structures are not messy or broken. They are ordered projections of a six-dimensional periodic lattice, right? Just as a third dimensional object can cast a two-dimensional shadow and it looks different from every angle. These forbidden symmetries in our world are are basically just like rational cuts or shadows of a higher dimensional reality, right? Where symmetry is periodic. So, and when we get into the mathematical blueprint, of course, Roger Penrose in 74, he was the one who was able to demonstrate that just two specific tile shapes could completely cover a plane with fivefold symmetry. The pattern possesses strict long range order and self similarity, but it never exactly repeats itself, right? And I'm not sure if y'all can see it really good on the screen. Um, but if you could see that, that was actually artwork as well. If you there's a Islamic country that has this art. I'm gonna try to look it up while we working on it. But inside like one of their temples, you can see this style on the roof. So you could kind of tell they was well aware of the golden ratio, right? Um, even in ancient times. It's kind of like we're kind of and I think what's given what we're gonna kind of find out is the disadvantage that we've had with the advancing in science and understanding our reality in these questions is that we only look at things through one lens. And so um to them there's a oneness or a connection between being inside and outside of existence. Um I'll say it like that, right? Or between, I don't want to spook it out. So, but no, I'll just say it between this and the spiritual world, right? Understanding that connection between us and the spiritual world, or as they refer to it, as the shadow world, right? Which technically we are the shadow world. That would be the higher realm. But, you know, but them understanding that connection has always allowed them to not only they never separated the two, like this the science and the spirituality go together, and it's for a reason, right? Because number one, part of the science is going to be your imagination, being able to see things um, that necessarily don't make sense, kind of like the guy that was splitting the atom. Could you imagine telling people that today that you want to split this atom, that you have this theory about this invisible object? Remember, that's how you're gonna start, right? That's how you're gonna start the conversation. I know that there's an invisible object that exists called an atom, and I'm going to split it. Like, huh? But that's the merger of both. You have to be able to include imagination, and that's what allows for growth. Let's continue, right? So we talking about like the projecting order, right? How can the 3D structure be ordered but not periodic? The subsurface formalism provides the answer. These quasi-crystals are actually perfect periodic crystals existing in six-dimensional space. So it's like when we observe them, it's by taking an irrational slice of a higher dimension, a hyperlattice, right? And projecting it down into our world. That's why you have it working outside in, right? Projecting it down into our world, and then when we get it, we even create another projection. We project it down into 2D, right? We able to project our world down into 2D. Well, we're a projection of a projection, right? So the approximates, the rational stepping stones. When the six-dimensional hyperlattice is sliced at a rotational angle, it produces a standard periodic crystal. These approximate phases share nearly identical local atomic clusters, with crystals providing critical clues to deciphering the exact atomic positions. All right. So when it comes down to mapping, so they try to utilize both the 3D direct space tiling models and the six-dimensional reciprocal space approaches, have bridged the final gap today between the reliability of quasi-crystal atomic models matches that of a conventional periodic crystal. So we talk about the three architectures of solid matter. Amorphous, right? Solid, like glass. Classical crystal, right? And then we talk about, on the third one, we have the quasi crystal. So when we talk about like solid like glass, what does it have? Right? The short range order. Yes, it does. All of them line up with a short range order. A long range order. No, but both the classical crystal and the quasi crystal hold both, right? The long range order. Now this is where it gets tricky. It's the translational periodicity, right? Basically meaning it repeating itself, right? And we look at the quasi crystal, yeah, the amorphous solid doesn't either, but it's a little bit different. But when we look at the quasi crystal, you see the allowed symmetries, right? You get 5, 8, 10, and 12, right? 5, 8, 10, and 12. We don't have 5. Remember, 5 doesn't work, right? And then buddy finds out that 5 is that a fivefold symmetry is what? Actually just a shadow of a tenfold symmetry, right? That's how they was able to establish that. So this is where the projections come into play. This is why we believe we're on a 8-dimensional lattice, right? That gets projected down into a sixfold, from a 6 into a 4, and then of course our reality, which is a 3, right? Our reality, which is or the third dimension, and then of course you have the 2-dimensional, which would be like your TV. I mean the projection coming through the TV, right? So a crystal is a substance in which the constant the oh my god the constituent atoms are packed in a regular order, repeating three-dimensional patterns. By crystal is meant any solid having an essential discrete diffraction or diagram, right? So no longer do they have to put that these crystals are, that they have to repeat or have the same order, or what we called it periodic repetition. That no longer exists as the definition for crystals, right? And then, so hold on really quick. I want to stop sharing that. Hold on 1 second. Because I do want to get into the reality part of the interface. So 1 second, let me get over here for y'all. Open that. All right. All right, here we go. Let me share my screen real quick. And let's get to it. Should go now. All right, here we go. All right. So so today, like as we kind of already had established, right? And just to kind of lay a ground. So typically we get into these discussions as if they are a theory, right? But today we are getting into a meta Noah, right? A meta Noah, a fundamental transformation of how we perceive our existence. For centuries, we've assumed that our senses are like windows, showing us the world as it truly is. We believe that space time and matter were the floor of reality. But today, using the tools of high energy physics, evolutionary game theory, and advanced mathematics, right? I plan to show you that space time is destroyed. It is not the foundation of reality. It is a virtual reality headset designed to keep us, like I said, alive, right? So let's talk about it, right? So, virtual reality interface. We can say like almost like Grand Theft Auto, right? And I'll use Grand Theft Auto for a metaphor. I think it's I hear that name pop up a lot. I don't play it. Uh, never really been a fan, but shout out to those who do. So you have like Grand Theft Auto, right? So when you see a red Ferrari on the screen, you don't believe that there is actually a tiny red car inside of your computer, right? It's already kind of understood that it's just pixels rendered with a or rendered with like this complex code that actually looks nothing like a car. That's the wild part, right? Actually looks nothing like a car, right? And we can kind of use that in a way, right? It kind of explains that our 3D world is that screen, basically, right? Evolution has shaped us with a need to know interface. Seeing the truth would have been a evolutionary disadvantage because it's too complex, right? We only need to see shadows to survive. We only need to see shadows to survive. And I'll just tell you straight up, the human experience represents 0% of the actual reality behind the screen. 0% of the actual reality behind the screen. And I'm going to stand on that. So let's get into it, right? So, just as Plato described, right, prisoners seeing only shadows on the wall is the same way we are basically immersed, right, into this virtual reality headset, right? So, evolution did not shape us to see reality as it is. Instead, it provided an interface to keep us alive, right? Very simple. So we talk about this physics crisis, right? We're dealing with space time being doomed, okay, to bring rigor, right? And I'll just say this: when we try to observe things and we was kind of talking about this right on a smaller scale. The fact that these things disappear because of how much energy it takes to observe something so small, it renders it basically, like I was saying, it kind of renders it useless. So we talk about projections and dualities, right? Quasicrystals, they are mathematically understood as 3D projections of a six-dimensional lattice. Just very simple. This is what provides the physical proof of a concept that complex. Order, structures, and our world can be simple shadows of a higher dimensional order, right? So if you can see stage one, the shadow antiquity. Prisoners mistake flickering shadows for the real world, a low tech but fundamentally accurate intuition, right? So that shadow is your shadow, but that shadow is not you. That shadow is only a projection of you. How are you able to see that shadow? It depends on your exposure to light, right? At what angle the light. So no different when we talk about the desktop in the digital age, right? The GUI interface. That blue that we talked, remember we was talking about it, the blue folder that's on the screen, the true reality that is invisible magnetic voltage. There goes that red car you think you see, right? So basically, like I said, these provide the physical proof of the concept that complex, that order structures in our world can be simple shadows of a higher dimensional order. All right. Um, so when we talk about the correspondence or the reference, we so we get, hold on, what is wrong? Okay, no, I don't like to do it. So you have Juan Maldaceni's. So you have Juan Maldaceni's breakthrough work on duality, right? And basically, in his theory, he suggests that gravity in bulk space is equivalent to the field theory on its boundary. This reinforces the idea that our third dimensional space time world is a holographic projection of a deeper code, right? So, the main thing about all of this and that you can't take out of this argument is the observer, right? Who, what, where, whatever it is, this observer effect is the part that brings our reality into existence. None of the things exist the way that they are coded until observed, right? Until observed. Once they're observed, that's when the coding takes place, and these things begin to take the form of basically and because they because basically your awareness or your consciousness is basically about compare and contrast, right? And so you're constantly comparing things to other things so that you know what it is. That's just kind of like what the brain is doing, right? So it's constantly you got to sit down and saying that that's a chair as opposed to the floor. so you don't just go through, right? Eh, So basically, what they've recently been able to find is that your team has been able to derive flat Minkowski space time and its laws directly from the trace logic that connects these conscious agents. This means space time isn't the floor, it's reality. It's a basically like a data structure created by consciousness, right? A data structure created by consciousness. And you can say structure with boundaries. What are some of these boundaries? Speed of light, right? That's a boundary. Um, um, Anything smaller than 10 to the minus 33rd power, that's a limitation, right? Um, let's see. Anything outside of what is it like other galaxies are basically moving away faster than the speed of light outside of this galaxy. There's another boundary. So we're already in the boundary of speed of light that would keep us from leaving outside of this galaxy. But then on top of that, those galaxies are separated from us faster than the speed of light. So these are all boundaries, right? Um, so I kind of want to talk about like headset hacking, right? Because what happens is like, and just kind of like, and I'm not, a genius with software engineering, but just kind of getting a small understanding of software outside of the headset, we can perform what looks like magic, moving objects at impossible speeds or warping the dimensions of space. This may explain the technology associated with UAPs or UFOs, which seem to defy the known laws of physics because they are operating outside of our headset constraints. The metonia, right? This reframes the concept of repentance as metonia, the transformation and the transcendence of the mind, that stepping into your higher self or that connection with your higher consciousness. Now you know that this is a shadow world. You know that there's a you that exists in higher dimensions and it's being projected all the way down to this level, right? So ultimately, the map suggests that we are all avatars of a single, right, unified consciousness, looking at itself through different headsets. As you wrap up like, and then so as you kind of wrap up, um, how could I? Yeah, I would say if you was like wrapping up a show, right, or when the show ends, like those characters no longer exist outside of the mind of the playwright, basically, right? The person who created the play. And the person who created the play, technically, he is he all different parts of him and his consciousness is being animated through different vessels, right? So each actor, right, is becomes an open vessel for the playwright to be able to use, right? And then when it's done, when the show is over, then you're supposed to be able to go back to whatever, but those characters no longer exist outside of his mind, unless or they only exist on the projection. right? Only on the projection. So I want to get it. So let's talk about the black hole limit, right? I do need to. I think I kind of got to go a little bit deeper into that, right? Let me see. So the consciousness, which is high energy theoretical physics, have which high energy theoretical physicists have reached a startling conclusion that space time has had a good run, but it is over. All right. And so the limits of quantum theory itself cannot be fundamental. It relies on locality and unitarity, concepts that break down entirely at the extremes of physics. The search for the outside massive global initiatives are now explicitly funding research into what exists strictly outside of space time, meaning the headset is finally coming off, right? So the resolution limit of the universe, to observe, and like we were talking about, right? So to observe smaller details, we need light with smaller wavelengths, right? So basically, you're trying to collapse these wavelengths as small as possible. So you would use, right, these smaller wavelengths end up requiring so much energy, too much energy, basically, right? And so according to E equals mc squared, energy is mass. So we talk about the glitch, right? It says packing extreme energy into a 10 minus the 33rd degree centimeter causes observation itself to collapse into a black hole. Space-time has no operational meaning past this point. It is a shallow data structure. Very simple. And this is why when I got into Nima Akani Ahmed, um, she basically, she set the stage. But when she said that if the very stage of our reality is shallow, we must find what's off stage. Like very simple. So these monolithic structures, right? I want to get into a few of them. So the amplitude So they raised, as you can see, they raised the question, correct? If space time is doomed, what replaces it? Physicists are discovering positive geometries like the amplitude existing entirely outside of space and time, right? Entirely outside of space and time. And I believe this is a 10 symmetric. I think this is a 10 symmetric fold, right? So the anomaly is that these geometries do not care about the locality of quantum probabilities. Their static volumes perfectly predict the complex scattering amplitudes of particle collision happening inside of our space time, meaning that basically these structures that we're looking at, right, that's created, this structure carries the code that causes the particles to smash together here, right? Or causes these particle collisions happening in our space time. Volumes perfectly predict the complex scattering amplitudes of particle collisions happening inside our space time colliders. They are the geometric code running the physics engine, right? So they're telling you physics is an engine. It's an engine. So there is a layer of software basically that exists outside of our 3D world, right? So you can look at this geometrical structure as software, right? This software that exists outside of space time codes particles that smash together inside of our realm or inside of our space time, right? They smash these particles together. So these are positive geometries that allow us to calculate particle interactions with miraculous simplicity. So what would take hundreds of pages of algebra using traditional space-time methods can now be solved in 2 turns using these structures. All right. So the math is mathing. Just in case y'all wondering, yeah, the math is mathing, right? So like we said that these structures don't care about locality or unitarity. They exist in a realm where the rules of our headset do not apply. So now we talk about the higher dimensional reality that projects into our 3D world. How does it do it? Here's your high dimensional truth, or your high dimensional or your 6 dimensional lattice. It uses a dimensional shadow. This shadow projects through this dimensional shadow our space time, right? The same way that you would do it when we project our third dimensional, right? We project the third dimension through a dimensional shadow, right? That projects a 2 dimensional version of our space time. Okay. All right. So, and this is what I mean. So, like these quasi crystals, and let's remember these quasi crystals they won a Nobel, right? These are Nobel winning quasi crystals, right? The materials which was thought to be mathematically impossible in a third dimensional crystal. But what happens? They are possible, right? Because what? They are third dimensional projections of a 6 dimensional lattice. Just as, like I was just talking about, just as the third dimensional object casts a 2 dimensional shadow, these complex structures are shadows of a higher dimensional order. This proves that ordered, complex structures in our world can be simple, rational cuts of a much larger, higher dimensional reality. Right? So, as you can see, space time is a third dimensional shadow of a higher dimensional truth. the 6-dimensional lattice, right? So so I'd even, like I said, I'd even jump out on it, out of the window, and I'll just say it, right? So even when we talk about things like gravity in our world, gravity is a projection of a deeper code, right? Gravity is a projection of a deeper code. So, and we kind of got into it earlier when we was talking about boat theory, right? Where it was Juan Maldacena. He was basically kind of getting into the theory of gravity and bulk space is equivalent to a field theory on its boundary, right? And so as we was talking about it, it was just basically that our 3D or our third dimensional world we feel in touch is actually just the boundary data of a deeper reality, right? Is just the boundary data is of a deeper reality, meaning that there's something on the other side of the fence. The grass actually may be greener, right? And as you can see, um, we get space, time, and physical matter. The rendered out output is positive geometries and amplitude-hadrons, the geometrical software, and then interacting conscious agents, the foundational hardware. All right. And so basically, we get into, like I said, space time just being data structured and created by consciousness. All right. So what is consciousness or the conscious agent or the conscious agent, right? And so Markov matrix, he was able to mathematically prove that a set of experiences and the probabilities of them transitioning between them, right? So he introduced trace logic. This is the mathematical weave that connects all conscious agents into one coherent logic. The breakthrough, what they was able to do was explain that my team, that basically he was basically able to explain that basically the way he viewed it is that it kind of made space time, it kind of made his laws kind of um basically irrelevant outside of the headset. And so to me the headset is the brain, right? The way I explain it is that your consciousness uses a brain um as the interface, right, to interact with the game world, basically, right, or the shadow world. So I think so. I mean, right. So he gets into it, as you can see, the concept, right? The taste of mint, you can connect that to the color red. You can also connect the color red to a headache, right? You can also connect the color red to a headache, meaning that sometimes when people see a color, they can taste mint. Sometimes when people are tasting mint, they see red. Sometimes tasting mint can cause a headache. Sometimes tasting mint can cause you to see red, or the headache can cause you to see red, and you either need to taste the mint or you taste mint. These all work in a cycle, all right? And so to avoid Rube Goldberg, The Theory of Consciousness, we define an agent using parsimonious mathematics. The axiom one, there are conscious experiences. Humans have trillions of distinguishable experiences. There are transition probabilities between these states. An observer is simply a mathematical matrix of these probabilities. Right? So, how does it work? The trace logic, right? How the infinite wears a headset. How do we weave infinite, distinct observers together through trace logic, right? Imagine a grand Markov matrix governing 10 million colors. If an avatar's headset is only built to see three colors, they only experience the transitions between those three. This trace creates a Boolean sublogic. It explains how a massive unified consciousness deliberately limits itself to a smaller constrained subset of experiences, becoming a distinct avatar. All right. Or the brain, as we know, the brain gives you an illusion that you are a distinct avatar. Right. So this trace creates a Boolean subobject. It explains how a massive unified consciousness deliberately limits itself to a smaller constrained subset of experiences. All right. So when we booting up, let's talk about it, right? Booting up reality or deriving space time. Said by tracking the dynamics of conscious agents, we derive the fundamental laws of physics natively from consciousness. The expected commute time for a matrix to return to a specific state is perfectly mapped to the square of the Euclidean distance. Space and time are not fundamental, they are the calculated output of consciousness interacting. So let's talk about it, right? So if you are a wizard inside of a video game, you can do amazing things. If you are the coder outside of the game, you perform impossible magic by simply rewriting perimeters. Our space-time headset operates natively with a dimension parameter of dimension equals 3 or d equals 3, right? The entities operating in larger traces, higher dimensional matrices, can manipulate objects into our smaller trays. To us, this looks like impossible acceleration or faster than light travel. It is not a violation of physics. It is interacting with the software outside of the headset. Mm, right? Matonia expanded the trace. We are currently constrained by a specific logic. And actually, hold on, let me go back to that, right? Because that's kind of deep, right? So when we talk about it, you violating the laws of physics, meaning that you can you can create movements in the game that are probably faster than that break the laws of physics, right? But the only way that you do that is by interacting from outside of the game, right? You have to interact with the game from the outside of the software or outside of the headset. If you're in the headset, you're already locked into the laws, right? Or these physical laws that govern you. So the Metonia expanding the trace, right? We are currently constrained by our specific trace logic, but we can expand the perimeter. I believe so, right? The metonia, often translated as repentance. This concept actually means to transcend the localized conceptual mind by altering the dimensional parameters of the brain's rendering engine. We can expand our Markov matrix to perceive higher dimensional structures. How? Meditation, um, shadow work, for some prayer, manifestation. But most of what's gonna happen is all gonna start first inside, right? So that's all they're talking about, right? Is that your world is a projection. Understanding that your world is only a projection of something that's coming from inside, right? The more that you're able to understand and become one with what's inside, the easier it is for you to be able to manipulate or change or alter, right? What we see, or what we believe is the limits created by the brain or the programming of the brain. Oh, let me go back. Meditation. I didn't even, right? Meditation, a altered state, right? Can take you where? Into transcending the trace, right? But it's all going to start here, the mind, the current trace, right? Which is currently, you believe, is trapped inside of a third dimensional realm, but no, it's just using a third dimensional brain or matter. Player one, the ultimate synthesis. So it says, love your neighbor as yourself. It's not just a moral directive, it is literal mathematical trace logic. This is only one infinite transcendent consciousness. It chooses to look at itself through an infinite number of constrained perspectives or headsets as a way of knowing itself. You are not the avatar lost in a physical universe. You are the infinite reality, deliberately wearing a trivial headset, slowly waking up to your true nature. God, right? We already know what your true nature is. God, right? Make sure I got that. Let me see. All right. So when we talk about the discovery of the quasicrystals and what they have taught us, right? These discoveries have taught us humility, because we don't know when the next class of non-periodic exciting crystal structures will be discovered, or if there will be such a discovery at all. Rather than making the mistake again of being overly restrictive, science now treats exclusive statements about the laws of nature with caution. All right, with caution. So I'll go ahead and I think this is probably a good space to go ahead and close out. So at the end of the day, if we are truly living inside of a mathematical simulation or VR headset, right? Like we started, we should already know and expect to find glitches, right? Um in this basically inside of this matrix, right? Or inside of our reality, which we do, right? So we are no longer guessing. The master conscious agents, the six dimensional projections, of quasicrystals and the doomed nature of space-time all point to one conclusion. You are the reality, not the headset you are wearing. When you take off the headset, you don't find a dead universe. You find the kingdom of heaven that has been inside of you all along. This game is just the beginning. Appreciate y'all again. And with that being said, man, I'm gonna go ahead and call it a day. Peace, peace. I appreciate y'all for showing up. What's good? What's good? Shout out to Leffy. Shout out to Leaf. I appreciate you in the building. Shout out to Swab. What's good? What you got? What's good? What's good? Leela. I have to drop some. I mean, I have to drop the parachute. I dropped the parachute. What's happening? I was gonna end it, but here, let me drop the link first. Make sure ain't nobody trying to tap in. I'll put the link out there. And I got part two to the other show coming. Um, just kind of wanted to get into that first before we did anything else. Yeah, y'all tap in 05 with your black. What's up? What's up? What's up? Another day. It's hot as fuck down. It's hella hot. Yeah, so I do got some more coming. What's happening with you, Angel? Peace, peace. Definitely got some more coming on with that. Um, so I'll wait to see who gonna tap in and hit the link. Let's see here. Yeah, I think today though was straight. It was definitely straight. Like I said, man, we had a real unique moment in history, right? We talk about it. It's like really for the first time, almost like the toughest science you can ever think of, the most rigorous science is finally catching up with our spiritual intuitions and shit. Right? They finally catching up. You got a lot of pseudos out here that still, moving in the wrong direction. But like I said, science is already catching up to it, right? Uh, like we are already beginning to basically reverse engineer this headset or reverse engineer our reality, right? This isn't just like new technology. And that's what I keep telling you. The body is technology. It's just outdated, right? It's just outdated technology, but the body is technology. The software is outdated. You haven't been able to update your software. Some people can. And actually, I can show you examples, right? Um, Remember we got into CRISPR one time, right? I was able to show you that basically what CRISPR was able to do is take two different rats, one that was older, one that was young, and make them both the same age, right? So they are, and the way that they was able to do that was by sending a virus to your DNA that, and this code goes into the DNA. It breaks down the it breaks down basically the DNA and removes all of the scratches that came from the epigenome. All right. 'Cause remember the epi basically your DNA gets read by like the epigenome, like a CD player, right? Or like a reader. So it's constantly picking up these scratches over time. So what they found is that these scratches is what lead to things like Alzheimer's, things like sickness, death, and all of that. And if you can remove these scratches, you basically start over with a brand new CD, basically, right? And so, just like any other CD, when you put it in the tape, just from the reading itself, it causes scratches, right, over time. Um, it's kind of impossible for you to keep a CD without a scratch on it. The reader itself puts scratches. It's just kind of how it goes. So they've already been able to jump past that, um, and be able to break that down. That's why I was getting into the CRISPR in the first place, because this is the next step or the next phase that the FDA basically will be approving as we take the new phase. They already approved them to change your coding on your DNA, to where they can change the coding and remove the sickle cell trait completely out of your genetics. And so that was the first thing that the FDA approved. Right. Here, let me make sure, because I know I was be thinking the nigga just be talking. So hold on. Make sure y'all know a nigga is not just talking shit. All right. Sickle cell. I want to go ahead and get that. Scientists are using. Mm, hold on, I'm not finna play. Let me share my screen real quick with y'all. I ain't even finna play with it, because I know how it go. Let me go ahead and put y'all on real quick. Link is in there. Let me know whenever if you want to tap in. I'm gonna leave it open for a little bit just in case. But let's go here real quick, right? So we talk about it, right? These are the and so they say scientists are using CRISPR Cas9 gene editing, right, to treat sickle cell disease by modifying a patient's own bone marrow stem cells to reproduce fetal hemoglobin, which prevents sickling, or by repairing the mutation of the B globin gene, or the hemoglobin gene, right? The FDA approved the first CRISPR based treatment in late 2023. Just in case y'all think it's a damn game, because I know let's get into it, right? So, so of course, as we know, yeah, whatever, I don't care. You niggas tracking me anyway, so I ask. Anyway, um, so we talk about the like typically people with the sickle cell, the actual disease usually would have to use like basically blood transfusion, right? In order to kind of treat those are, for the most part, more of the severe cases. But it does go on to say though, with severe and potentially life threatening manifestations, The BCL11A is a transcription factor that represses the hemoglobin expression, right? And the fetal hemoglobin in the erythroid in the I'm sorry, the erythroid cells. We perform the electroporation. The electroporation of the CD34 plus. Oh my God, we ain't finna do this, yo. I swear to God, hell no. Leela, we ain't finna do this. Let's get to the point, cousin. Hold on, let me see. All right, so approximately 80% of the alleles at this locus were modified, right? With no evidence. I know we should know what the alleles are, right? From conversations. Correct. Hopefully we do. Remember the alleles are something that are kind of passed on. You kind of pick up, and then these things are passed on. Um, they basically are used to the like you can use these alleles to decipher which family group you belong to, basically, right? 9 times out of 10, we're looking at the alleles. That's how you get an E1B1A or E1B1B, right? The difference in the A and the B is typically going to be the alleles. At this locus were modified with no evidence of off-target editing after undergoing the myelobation, no, lower loblation. Two patients, one with TDT and the other with the SCD, receive autologous CD34 plus cells editing with the CRISP Cas, the same BCL11A enhancer more than a year later. Both patients had high levels of the allelic editing in the bone marrow and blood, increases in fetal hemoglobin that were distributed cellularly, pancellularly, transfusion independence. Let me see. Nah, I wanted to go to nah. That don't do it justice. That don't do it justice. Um, mm, 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 mm. Let's see what this figure is. Make sure ain't nobody coming in. No. Hold on. Cause I do want to get something. Yeah, cause I want y'all to see. Right here, yeah, here. This is actually is good. Right, this actually is good. If you could see the picture. Ah, I messed up. I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me go back. All right. I want you to see the picture. So what they've been able to do is identify the sequence, right, of your code. Correct. So this is the identified sequence of the code that is causing. Um, so let's see. This is the target sequence, right, on the RNA. So this is where they find that this the way that this is coded, or the order of this structure, is basically what causes the what do you call it, the sickle cell trait, right? This is your sickle cell trait, basically. And so what CRISPR is doing, right, is that, and hopefully y'all can see that because I know that's kind of small, but basically what CRISPR does is they find the codings that cause certain things in the DNA, And let's say that this CAC or this ATCA is causing the issue, right? They might say that that A and this C needs to be flipped, basically. And so what they'll do is recode this sequence. And by recoding this sequence, they basically able to genetically edit different traits out of your DNA or out of your genome. All right. Out of the genome. And so as you can see, they're using the guide RNA, all right, which is basically they're bypassing the DNA and sending a code to the RNA themselves to be translated. Or, well, I'm probably saying that wrong, but yeah, y'all get it. But I do want y'all to get the, hold on. Let me stop sharing. Because I want to show y'all the news. Let's see if we get an update on some of these kids. Yeah. Yeah, let's do it like this. All right, I found something. Let me share this video real quick, and then this should assist right here.
Step guides for any process with AI. You know what's terrifying at work? When you start a new job and there's no training.
The FDA just approved the first ever CRISPR-based therapy, a medicine called Casgevy. The treatment, from Vertex Pharmaceuticals and CRISPR Therapeutics, stone in genetic medicine. It is used for thalassemia. These diseases affect hundreds of thousands of people, mostly of African and Asian descent. Here's how it works. Both disorders stem from mutations that cause problems with hemoglobin, the protein in red blood cells that carries oxygen. In patients with sickle cell disease, the mutated hemoglobin twists red blood cells into a crescent or sickle shape and can create painful blockages that inhibit the flow of blood and oxygen to the body. Patients with beta thal don't produce enough hemoglobin in the first place and have lower blood oxygen levels as a result. Casgevy can be used to treat both conditions by using CRISPR to edit a gene in a patient's own blood stem cells so they resume production of fetal hemoglobin. Fetal hemoglobin is naturally produced during fetal development, but this stops shortly after birth. It's a healthy form of hemoglobin that carries oxygen and when infused into a patient can greatly improve their condition. This footage, provided by Vertex, shows how the drug is made. After receiving a bag of the patient's blood cells, a machine is for gene editing. The components of CRISPR, a cutting enzyme called Cas9, and a guide RNA that steers the gene editing molecule to the right place in the genome, are added to the cells. And the mixture is put through a device called an electroporation machine, which uses electricity to shuttle the materials into the cells. Once the edited cells have had time to grow and be harvested, they are put into vials and frozen until it is time to infuse the therapy into a patient. Unfortunately, the treatment is difficult for patients. To make room for the edited cells, they must first receive care about the existing bone marrow. This can lead to hair loss, painful mouth sores, and infertility. Patients have to spend weeks in the hospital after the infusion. The whole process can take months and will cost millions of dollars.
Yeah, we ain't gonna watch this, but this going in next time. This is about an hour, so we'll react to this. This just came out 11 days ago, and I haven't watched it yet, so we'll react to that one together. It's about an hour long. Yeah, it's about an hour long. So yeah, I want that one in the what you call it in my watch history. So I remember. You be doing some uh let's deal with this one real quick. We're gonna watch
Our
this
designer
on the panel.
babies with enhanced
I will be
intelligence
going to
or
go
strength
troll this.
just around the corner? The simple
We're gonna
answer
see.
is no.
For the record, I mean is on the panel, or I mean whatever the nigga name is, the evolutionist. We finna go prove he's pseudo in just a little bit. We're gonna go prove that. I might show up on the computer just to go ahead and get that in real quick. And we'll prove that this nigga is a pseudo. You better believe that. Anyway,
The technology that makes this important conversation possible is called CRISPR, a revolutionary gene editing tool that allows scientists to make precise changes to the DNA in any cell or organism. In the development of the CRISPR technology, I had a dream in which a scientist was introducing me to a man in a dark room, and when that man turned around, it was asking me to describe to him how the CRISPR technology worked and tell him how it could be useful. And I woke up from that dream with a real start, and that was one of the things that motivated me to begin discussing publicly the implications. At the same time, a few years, the greatest problem may be fear itself, that the CRISPR technology has the potential to do many beneficial things for society, and to reject that technology because we are uncertain about the way it may be used in the future, I think would be a mistake. The CRISPR technology is based on a bacterial immune system that allows bacteria to fight viral infection. How do they do this? They actually use a programmable enzyme called Cas9 that can be programmed with little bits of RNA. These are little copies of DNA.
and that's what I be talking about, man, with the pseudo shit. Now, if I use the word, I'm gonna go over here and use the word program in just a little bit. Watch this nigga panic. As soon as I say program, he gonna panic. Like, nigga, what the fuck else are they doing right now? They are programming sequences, right? To send a code that literally restructures your fucking DNA. Like, what are we talking about right now? Some computer shit. Niggas is able to do some computer shit with your body because your body is fucking technology. They not using words like codes, transmute, translate, like communication. They don't use this shit for no reason. It's nothing else you can use to explain this shit. Like, what else you gonna use? What else are you gonna say is going on? What's happening exactly? Like, so if DNA isn't a code, what the fuck is it? Well, not a code, but a blueprint. But still a code. It carries the code. We gotta like, and this is the point we're trying to figure out. Notice those same structures, right, or those geometrical structures that exist outside of space time, the amplitude, right, or the amplitude hedron. This is also something that literally codes particles inside of our space and time that causes the particle smashing. They was able to discover that in CERN. Like, that was the major discovery in CERN. When they talk about they found the God particle, the God particle that they're talking about was the geometrical structures outside that shouldn't exist, causing codes or coding the different structures that set boundaries and limits on our reality. I'm finna hold on, I'm gonna let them cook. I'll be back.
is a piece of DNA inside of a cell and cut it. And in the DNA, cells take over, repair the break, and in the process, introduce a change to the DNA precisely at that place in the genome. One of the reasons scientists are so excited about
So what they are finding is that what? That you can code basically your DNA sequence by not only can it cut itself out and then repair itself, but also, and this is how they was able to change the age of the two rats, because the virus would go and it basically what it would do is the virus would make the DNA break itself down, and it would break itself down and then repair itself, all scratches removed. Right, this is why they're able to play with age and shit. Like, these are things they're able to already do a bunch of other shit. We just dealing with what the FDA has approved, right? Why have they approved this? Because we're their fucking guinea pigs. And if you niggas don't see that shit, I don't know what the fuck we talking about. They just told you that. And see, this is where the DNA conversation kills these niggas, right? What did he tell you? Who, where is sickle cell high at? He said Africans and Asians, correct? Now, what did I say about the E marker? Because what you're gonna find is that sickle cell is actually exclusive to E1, B1A, and the L3. So the highest concentrations in Africa is going to be amongst the E markers, L3, and L2, because of our connection with them, because of us taking L2. These niggas is dead on this shit, yo. Like, this is outside of the of us already being YAP positive, right? YAP, YAP positive. We literally are the only African group that are YAP positive, and now we would be the only African group where naturally we needed to become immune to malaria. Why don't the other Africans need to be immune to America? Why, you ever notice that? Why haplogroup A and haplogroup B, how are they immune to malaria? Why they didn't need to pick up the sickle cell trait in order to survive in Africa? Ain't that funny? But we'll keep cooking.
the CRISPR technology, that it can be used to correct mutations that cause genetic disease like cystic fibrosis or Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Used in the germline, that means in eggs or sperm or embryos. And when changes are made to DNA in those cells, the trait can be passed on to all of their future descendants. So it gives us now the power to change the very nature of what makes us human.
See, now that gets into the danger of these designer babies. It's two phases to this, right? Now, we know that Black people have enough psychological issues going on. if you think you start giving us the opportunity to be able to create, to change our skin color, hair color, and eye color, you think black people gonna exist? How many? We gonna find out who black and proud soon. Why?
In reality, it's not going to
Why?
be possible to design a human being.
Niggas gonna
We're too
eliminate hair
complicated,
immediately.
and
And
there
the
are too
nose.
many unknowns about the human genome. But I do think that in the not distant future, we will correct disease-causing mutations. Given that this future for humankind is near,
And I say that because we like to pick on some of the some of our brothers and sisters in the islands who bleach their skin, and some of the other and some of the people on the continent. But we gonna be exposed as well real soon with this technology coming. It's gonna expose what the fuck we willing to do to be in close proximity of whiteness. Watch.
how do we prepare for our, of the most important questions that we all need to debate? Number one, safety. We need to ensure the safety of gene editing, especially if it were to be used in human embryos. Number two, prioritization. We should limit the use of CRISPR-based gene editing in embryos to cases where there's no alternative. Number three, access. This technology should not only be available to the wealthy. It should be available to everyone. And how do we ensure that that happens? I think that's a very important discussion to be having right now. Number four, engagement. It's incredibly important that citizens everywhere have a voice deciding how to use powerful technologies like CRISPR. It's important to understand that CRISPR gene editing is useful in many areas of biology and technology. I'm most excited right now about the ability to generate plants that are resistant to climate change, then perhaps have better nutritional value, has huge implications for human health globally. And I think that's one of the areas where the CRISPR technology may have the most immediate impact.
So notice though she named safety, right? We need to make sure that it's safe before we begin to use it on our human population and the embryos. But the FDA rolled it out, and that's what I be meaning, man. Talking over your fucking head. You know, yeah, you can believe that they think that when they say human, nigga, we included. But no, sir, we're the guinea pigs, which is why. Let me go ahead and show y'all, cause I know niggas be thinking it's a game, man. I know people be thinking this is a motherfucking game. Let me get to the people who done it. To the people who done it. Let's see. Here we go.
Need for seamless stream
Just one second.
gaming.
Get
Well,
some-
Health this morning,
Yeah.
FDA appears ready to greenlight the first treatment using gene editing. If approved, it would target sickle cell disease, which affects about 100,000 people in the U.S., many of whom are Black. Few treatments are available at this point, so this has the potential to be a game changer. CNN's Meg Terrell joins us now. Meg, you spoke to a young patient. He was one of the first people in the world to have his genes actually edited, which sounds terrifying. A tremendous breakthrough. Why?
No, absolutely. I mean, he put it that way as well, and it'll be so exciting for everybody to get to hear from him. This is a huge moment in science and also in medicine because CRISPR itself, this gene editing tool, was really only discovered almost a decade ago. It won the Nobel Prize in 2020, and sickle cell itself has also been a neglected disease in the pharmaceutical industry. So this is a huge moment on multiple fronts. Check it out.
2 years ago, it was hard to imagine 15-year-old Johnny Lubin doing this for very long. Born with sickle cell disease, an inherited disorder affecting the red blood cells, Johnny has been in and out of the hospital his entire life, dealing with bouts of extreme pain and other serious complications.
It was kind of hard for me to do things like have fun and stuff because I'd always have to be worried about if I'd have a pain crisis or not. It would mostly be in my back, like my lower back, and it'd always be really a pounding pain in my back, so it hurt a lot.
How long would they last?
Sometimes days.
Until now, the only hope for a cure for the estimated 100,000 people in the U.S. with the disease has been a bone. John.
That point, we're like, okay, what's going to be next? We thought that we were going to lose them.
His family decided to try something that's almost never been done before.
I was worrying that I might be get superpowers or
As part of a clinical trial for a completely new kind of treatment, Johnny is now one of the people with disease.
And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool.
And scary.
and freaky.
You feel like a medical pioneer?
I don't know. I feel like a guinea pig.
In sickle cell, a genetic mutation causes red blood cells, which carry oxygen around the body, to be misshapen, like crescents or sickles. They can get stuck in the blood vessels, causing severe pain and decreased oxygen to organs. Cells are removed and edited to turn on production of a different form of the oxygen-carrying protein hemoglobin, a type we have when we're babies, explains Johnny's doctor, Monica Bhatia. Then the edited cells are returned to the patient.
So in essence, it's a fetal hemoglobin induction process.
And that's good enough?
Fetal hemoglobin, a higher oxygen carrying capacity than adult hemoglobin or sickle hemoglobin. And so yes, it is more than good enough.
And so far, it has been good enough. 29 out of 30 patients, including Johnny, met the trial's goal, being free from having a pain crisis for at least a year after treatment.
How long's it been?
2 years.
2 years.
Now Johnny and his family celebrate his treatment day as his second birthday.
October 4th is when I got the infusion. So basically I got the whole new dose of cells and stuff.
And into a super witty.
I'm starting to teach them how to drive, so that's another thing to worry about. So yeah, so we're stepping into the regular worrisome of
that's still on the table. We don't know yet.
To be a
He's a clown. My baby's a clown.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
So you guys heard there's been 2 years since he's had a pain crisis. They don't know how long. You have to get the cells removed from your body. They're edited and then returned. That comes with a lot of complications. Stay in the hospital for a month. So there are risks to that. This also could be very expensive, maybe $2 million per treatment. So there are questions about how widely it'll be used, but it is expected to be a huge medical
Big deal. And you don't need a donor.
Right.
That is a game changer.
Yeah.
What a story. Thank you, Meg.
Thanks, guys.
But it's been approved. And this was old. So just so y'all know, it was approved. And so, like I said, you could say it was approved on Black people. And I'd even say that it was approved on Asians, right? We'll get into that on another discussion. But at the end of the day, man, I think that's a good place, though, to end it. I'm going to go over here and argue a little bit, try to sharpen up my sword. I got a debate tomorrow. Make sure y'all tap in tomorrow for the debate. Should Black people rebuild Africa or help rebuild Africa? I will be the negative, stating no, we should not. My opponent KOT will be arguing as the affirmative. Yes, we should be. So that should be a good one tomorrow. I'm gonna go, like I said, go spar a little bit. Probably go troll admin. I see him over there, or the evolutionist, whatever. Finna go troll this nigga for a little bit. I'll probably jump on the computer. That way I can share my screen just in case he start talking too much shit. But with that being said, what's happening with you, Black Jackson? Power to the dark side. Y'all already know, man. Once again, man, power to the dark side. All praises to the most beautiful goddess of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, Stemia, whose image is the most beautiful black woman. With that being said, y'all already know if you are listening to this together, we are Babel. Let's build. Peace.